Welcome, everyone. It is February 23rd, a snowy Monday evening, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee, although an unusual one. Since due to our blizzard, we are on Zoom only. At the beginning of the meeting from the committee, I see Councillor Malachy from Ward 3, Councillor Bixby, Vice Chair of the committee from Ward 6, Councillor Silber from Ward 8, and Councillor Greenberg from Ward 1. Our first item of the evening is 82-26, the appointment of Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller to the Horace Cousins Industrial Fund. I'm so honored, Mayor Fuller, to have you join us. It is so wonderful to see you. Would love to have you say hello and tell us about your interest in serving on the fund.
Thrilled to be here. Hello, Chair Grossman, city councilors. Hello to Lisa and Steve and Commish Valcarce as well. I'm honored that Mayor Laredo put my name forward to all of you to consider. You probably know this. Go back to 1930, a guy named Horace Cousins donated a little over $500,000 to the city. He, with the proviso that it would grow to $1 million. And then after that, roughly 90% of it would be available for one-time grants to Newtonians who were in severe financial hardship. It was not supposed to be for ongoing needs. We've got an amazing Cousins Fund team. Krista Martinez Padua is the wonderful executive director. Megan Kennedy and Rajiv Parlikar are the other two. Aaron Goldman, who's been fabulous, has decided to step away, thus creating a vacancy. I'm thrilled to be for you to consider me. I'm sure all of you know there are many people in Newton who have severe financial hardships confront them. And with Krista's leadership, these contributions to them, which are usually less than $1,000, can make all the difference in the world between getting through a serious financial setback. So thrilled that you would consider me, and thank you, Mayor Laredo, for putting my name forward.
Thank you so much, Mayor Fuller. I want to note that we've been joined by Councillor Charm from Ward 5 and Councillor Krinsman from Ward 4. And I just saw Councillor Mickley from Ward 2 as well. We have a question from Councillor Greenberg. Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Hi, Mayor. I just wanted to say how fortunate we are that you are willing to continue to serve the city that we all love. And I'm just so happy to support this. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions from the committee? CFO Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. I never ask a question of a person at this committee, but as I understand it, Mayor Fuller, I've always thought that there was a limit of $750 for an individual. I don't know that that has ever changed in the time that I have been in the city. And so I hope, assuming that the council unanimously appoints you, I would hope that maybe you could just look into that and understand whether or not there's anything we would want to do in this day and age to raise whatever the maximum amount is.
Comptroller Curley may be able to shed some light. I do not believe there is a limit of $750. I read the bylaws pretty carefully. In fact, I think grants generally don't exceed $850. But you're raising a great question. What should generally the upper limit be? And that should be given a lot of thought. As Steve can tell you, there's close to $3 million in the fund right now. Generally, I think fiscal year 25, about $185,000 in gifts were given. Certainly, you have to think if you raise the amount, there may be fewer grants that you can give. But I see Steve has unmuted. He may be able to clarify for us.
Yeah, Mr. Curley, that would be great. And if you could also just review the information in preparation for the meeting tonight that you provided to Ms. Pennell and for the packet for everyone, I think that would be great.
Sure. So I'm not aware, as Ms. Lemieux said, of a $750 limit. Almost every award is $1,000 or below. There's several that are $750 or $1,000. Those are usually almost all rental assistance. And as far as the information that I provided, I was trying to pull up the Cousins Fund agreement. We have the old 30s or something agreement scanned somewhere in our shared drive. So I was trying to pull that up. So I wasn't quite paying attention. I apologize. But essentially, the Horace Cousins Fund is for one-time aid for financial hardship. Usually, it is rental assistance. Sometimes it is utility bills. There's water. There's National Grid. There's NSTAR. Sometimes there'll be a medical bill paid. But as Mayor Fuller mentioned, we had. Let me bring that back up because hold on. We've had 113,000 year to date this year, and almost 187,000 last year, 138,000 the year before. So we're typically helping 150 or so individuals each year throughout Newton. Is there anything you wanted to add that I may have included in the original response to Ms. Pennell?
I think that's helpful and supplements what Mayor Fuller shared at the onset. So I will leave it to members of the committee if they have any further comments or questions. Councillor Charm.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Mayor Fuller, thank you so much for your interest in this position. This is more of a question about the fund itself. I noted that the total amount of expenses is somewhere between $130,000 to $190,000 a year, and that includes the director's salary. I wonder whether there has been any discussion about having this fall into like a donor advised fund or some other way of looking at how to consolidate the overhead costs of a fund like this. It seems to me that if there's only $130,000 to $190,000 to be able to give a year, that within that a person's salary would be a large chunk. And I can imagine that the intent of this fund is to try to have as much impact as possible. This may not be within the realm of what our committee is trying to decide, but as someone who has worked within philanthropic funds before, it's something that is always top of mind of how is the money being spent. And so I'm curious about whether you have any background on that. And if you were to be appointed to the board, do you all have any leeway to be able to say how do we achieve the maximum impact as efficiently as possible? Thank you.
I think you're raising important questions. I'm not an expert yet, so I've still got a lot to learn. I'd suggest a couple things that we would want to keep in mind, which is that the three trustees are volunteers who review the information that the director has to ascertain, so that we have to double check Newton residency. That's usually straightforward, but there's also income verification and an interview to understand really what is happening in the person's private life that have led them to raise their hand and say, I need some assistance. So that the director is doing a lot more than just looking over the funds. There's a process, and I do believe it's a part-time position. And Krista is unusual. She's both, I believe, has a degree in social work, and I believe she has an MBA and has a great background to be doing this work with empathy and thoughtfulness and thoroughness. The other thing, by the way, is that the Cousins Fund operates under a legal framework. So I don't know enough about that to say that would constrain also what the choices of the trustees might be.
Mr. Curley.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention that last year, she does work part-time, and last year she made 31,000 to put into scope of what percentage that is. And I haven't found anything in the old agreement with the dollar amount, so it's pretty short, but
That's helpful. Thank you very much, Mr. Curley.
you're welcome.
All set, Counselor Charm? Yes. Okay, Counselor Silver.
I just have a brief question. How is the availability of the fund publicized?
Great question. And I'm talking past tense, and I'm sure people like Mayor Laredo or Dana Hanson or John Rice will also have ideas, because you want to continuously try to get the word out. I'd say there's been two key ways in the past. We certainly have tried to publicize it through, for example, mayor's updates, but the entire social work and guidance counselor teams, whether City Hall, Newton Public Schools, Newton Police Department, Older Adult Services, they're very aware of it, and they are often referring folks over to the Cousins Fund. The other important networking are many of the nonprofits who either are doing work in Newton itself or working with Newton residents, even though they're located outside. So we try to get word out to them. And again, referrals, I would say, are a large part, maybe even more than walk-ins.
Yeah, that's great. It seems like referrals would be a good conduit because people would have some awareness of the individual situation. So thanks.
Okay, do we have other comments or questions on the item? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Counselor Greenberg. Any further discussion or comments before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have unanimous support. Mayor Fuller, thank you
Thank you.
much for your
Take good care.
taking this on.
Good luck with the snow costs. Bye, everybody.
Stay safe and warm. Good night. If I can indulge everyone, I'm going to take our agenda items out of order because we have Commissioner Valcarce who is waiting very patiently for his item, and we are not expecting Commissioner Sullivan tonight. As you all can imagine, she has been working extremely hard, and in earlier meetings this morning, Councillor Bixby and I discussed with Ms. Lemieux, Mr. Morse, and Mayor Laredo if it would be acceptable to have her bow out of this, given all of her ongoing commitments. So Ms. Lemieux is going to handle the snow item. So for that reason, I'm going to go to our last item, 89-26, the transfer of $150,000 for the Cooper Center project closeout costs. This was heard by Public Facilities and approved on the 18th last Wednesday. Commissioner Valcarce, if you could take it away on this, please.
Great. Thank you very much for taking our request. I'm Alex Valcarce, Public Buildings Commissioner. In our letter that we submitted, we indicate that we are looking to have the council transfer the $150,000 from the project contingency so that those funds could be available to be used for project closeout. We typically manage closeout in our own contingency. And closeout can be things that come up as the building is being used. It might be an identification of some technology that we need, or some furnishings that we need, or something to support a program. It could be looking at modifications maybe to screen and do some plantings by abutters. It could be looking at the streets. Maybe there's some signage. And those things we typically are able to do with the funding that we receive. In the case of the Cooper Center project, at the time of bidding, we had a bid for miscellaneous metals, which is a file set bid trade for metalwork, railing, stairs, metal stairs, things of that nature. And that bid was $298,000, which was higher than our budget, but within our costs. At that time, we made the decision that we would cover the cost and that we would be able to manage it, and we have successfully done that. Just for a little background for some of you who are here and maybe some who were not, the Cooper Center was originally bid in August of 23. We had one general contractor who bid $29,900,000, which was way over our budget. We rejected that bid. We worked with the architect and the engineers, and we adjusted the way some of our construction was done. We moved some things more into wood framing and into some other systems. In order to rebid it, you have to make adjustments in the drawings, in the design, which is required by the state, but obviously keeping the program, the functionality, and those things. We rebid the project in December of 23, and we had a bid of $24,207,000. So we saved $5.6 million in an effort of 4 months, but it was a lot of work. So we knew the value of where we were at. We knew what the costs were. The change in the mixed metals cost was about 1.25% of our construction costs, and we did great. That leaves us at a point where we've managed all our responsibilities and our commitments. So we are not looking for these funds to cover any work that we've done that's required to be done to finish the project and pay out our bills. It's just that we are not in a great position to respond to these requests that would come up. And so typically we like to make sure that in the first year, the program gets run. We go through winter, summer, spring. You never know if there's going to be something that we need to deal with. And so basically we were looking for those funds to be able to respond to those kinds of needs.
Thank you very much. Do we have comments or questions? None? Councilor Malachy.
Yeah, I'm just curious why miscellaneous metals is singled out as affecting this and how it affects it.
It used $298,000 of our construction contingency because it was higher than the number that we had budgeted for that work. So if we didn't accept that bid, we would not have been able to move forward because we wouldn't have been able to build it without that trade. So, and that was the low bid. So we basically had to make the decision to accept the bid so that we could move the project into construction.
Yeah, I guess I'm still confused by it. So you borrowing from the miscellaneous metals account to cover the bid?
No, when the project is bid, there are subcontractors that bid. There are particular file sub-bid categories by state. Miscellaneous metals is one. The bids came in, and that number was higher than what we had allocated within the budget. So within our costs,
Mhm.
but able to cover it with our construction contingency costs.
Okay,
So we essentially said, okay, then we're going to take on the cost so we can build the project, because at that point we spent 4 months getting it into a place. But when it was bid in December, we only had 2 bids. So it was kind of the time the rubber had to hit the road, and we wanted to make sure we got the project going and got it in construction. So, and I think if everybody looks at the building today, I think most people are happy that we did.
okay, so basically you took money out of the contingency fund early, so you don't have as much in the contingency fund.
Out of our,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So, but we have managed all our costs, but now if we had not had taken that on, we would have that money now that we could use towards closeout.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Valcarce, I think that part of the confusion is because the request is to move money from the contingency account to a different account for closeouts. That accounting difference, what is it? What's the first account and what's the second account and what's the difference between them? We're talking within Cooper Center allocated dollars, but I think understanding that distinction would probably clear it up.
Okay. So the account it's in is the project contingency, which is the city council's contingency. So in order to use those funds, they have to be released. The account that it's moving to, that is a good question. I would have to go find that one out, but it's one of our accounts.
Yeah, Mr. Curley has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I go to him for a sec?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Curley, go ahead.
So the account that it's going to is for building improvements, which are some of these, last minute items that Mr. Valcarce mentioned that they are working on. But to kind of put it into perspective a little, is for these bigger projects, there's typically 2 contingency accounts. There's one that is at the control of the mayor, and there's one that's at the control of the city council. And so in this case, they've worked through the contingency that is controlled by the mayor. And now to do some of these last project closeout expenses, they are requesting to dip into that last contingency portion that is controlled by the city council. And they want to transfer that into the building improvement account within the Cooper Center project.
Got it. And a lot of times when we're doing these different kind of closeout transactions, we usually have a little bit extra in one or both of these contingency accounts that we're turning back over to the city. But in this case, we need to use them, the contingency funds.
Well, we're asking, it's,
Yeah, of course.
It's up to you. We'd like to walk, we take pride in what we do, and we want to walk away leaving it as best as we possibly can for everybody to use. And so it just, makes sense if we can do it.
Well, I think one of the explanations that you gave in the public facilities meeting the other night made a lot of sense to me, which was that in the early, the first year and early years of operation of a new building, there are unanticipated elements that come up in running the place that need attention and some dollars to make it all go smoothly. And that's essentially what we're doing. Counselor Malachy?
Yes, so if the full amount is not used in a certain amount of time, whether it's the first year or first 2 years, what happens to it then?
Well, whatever we don't use, we would turn back for certain.
Is there a particular period of time that would typically happen?
Certainly throughout the first year, I would imagine within the first year, once we get through, and it's operational and we've been through the seasons, I would assume that would probably be about right.
Ms. Lemieux, did you want to add to that?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, what we typically do is for all of these large construction projects, you give us the authorization in one evening. So whether it's 30 million or whatever it was for the Cooper Center. However, we don't bond in one fell swoop. Every year, we look very carefully at what we think we will spend by the end of that fiscal year, what we will commit by the end of that fiscal year. That's what we bond. And so we're very careful to typically have a small, but by small, I mean, $1, $2, $3, $4 million at the end that we wait to see what we actually spend on the project. So when Commissioner Valcase says we turn it back, when it's these large building projects, what we do is not bond up to the full level that you gave us authorization to do. We will then come back with housekeeping docket items, which then rescind the amount of the bond authorization that you gave us 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. And we will then bring your authorization in line to what it is that we actually need. So it's not cash coming back to the city in the sense that as what it really is money that we are not borrowing, because we try to really manage that fine line. Every now and then we borrow a little bit more than the project cost us. If the cost savings is so much, then we actually do turn it back and it goes into our capital turnbacks funds for us to reappropriate if we've already bonded it for some other purpose that is of a like time frame, or so a like bonding. But there's kind of, a lot that goes into it. So it's not necessarily us giving back money in that sense.
Thank you. Councilor Malachy, are you all set? Or
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Do we have further comments or questions on this item? Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Councilor Krinsman. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have unanimous approval. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Stay
Thank
safe.
you all. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we're going to go to our last item of the evening, which is very on point for our experience of the day. 97-26, the transfer of $1.5 million for snow removal. Ms. Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as you said at the beginning of the meeting, our DPW team has certainly been hard at work this winter. Up until Friday of last week, we had a little over 40 inches of snow. We had spent approximately $4 million, we believe, that we have contracted out. We haven't gotten all of the invoices in yet, but we certainly know and understand what it is that we have asked all of our contractors to do. So we think we have spent about $4 million up to this point prior to last night and today. As you can all imagine, my expectation would be that this is at least $1 million snowstorm, probably a few $100,000 above that. When the budget was prepared, we put $3.5 million into the DPW budget. I believe we had some snow funds left over from last year, so we started the year with $3,577,000 in the DPW budget for snow and ice removal costs. We also carry $1.5 million in the comptroller's budget. The theory there is, so for those of you who are new, it took us years to get to this point of us budgeting $5 million a year for snow. The theory is that we end up having about 54 inches per year. An average annual snowfall is 54 inches. We spend close to $100,000 all in per inch of snow. That's where our $5 million budget comes from. However, We know that the councilors, if we have quite a bit of snow, the council obviously wants to understand how much we are spending in any given winter. And so we purposely budget about 3.5 million in DPW and then 1.5 million in the comptroller's budget, so that we come to you at this point in the year if we're having lots of snow and we know that we need the comptroller's money. That's what I'm here for tonight, is asking for the difference. I will say to all of you, so we're still within our budget if you approve this request this evening. What I can say to you is we will either be late docketing an item that will be on presumably your agenda next time around, or if we don't late docket it, we would be most probably docketing something else before the year ends. I cannot imagine that we are going to end this winter within a $5 million appropriation. So this transfer keeps us within our budget. We have some flexibility still that we have not yet spent, but I wouldn't doubt that by the end of the week, we will have overspent our $5 million, and we will be back here asking you for the difference.
Thank you. Obviously, this is much needed. What's the total? I know in the mayor's last update, he said another probably 6 inches expected from what he sent it out. How much was it up to that point?
I don't know. Anecdotally, I've heard about 16 inches. The good news is that this is not like years ago. Years ago, we used to structure all of our subcontracts for snow removal where we paid by the inch. We no longer do that. And so the exact total number of inches isn't as critical as it was years ago, but obviously it all figures into the amount of time and labor that's involved, not only between our own in-house crews, but the contractors that we hire to do snow removal. So I don't know what the inches were. I know for the last big storm, we ended up deciding or settling on about 24 inches. We have actually several places in the city where we measure the snowfall. And so with all of the blowing and drifting that we had, I don't know that we actually have a number yet for this snow.
I guess we should be grateful that we're not in the parts of Rhode Island that have nearing 3 feet, but
exactly.
Still pretty significant. Comments or questions on this? Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion to approve by Councillor Bixby and Councillors Charm and Greenberg. Are those questions or
I'm
motion?
sorry, I had a question. I was late getting my hand up.
Sure.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
And Councillor Greenberg, go ahead since you're unmuted, and then Councillor Charm will come to you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lemieux, once we hit the $5 million, where would the rest of the funds come from?
Thank you. It's a great question. And so there are two places, but one that I would prefer at this point in the year, so that when we move this forward, because I fully expect that I will be back here asking for more money, my preference would be to take it from free cash. We still right now have $20 million of unappropriated free cash. And so that is certainly a good cushion. We also have, from years ago, we received it is probably money that we had incurred back in 2015 when we had that terrible winter. We ended up receiving a reimbursement from FEMA of $880,000 for that year. We actually put that into an inclement weather reserve for years when we may end up having so much in snow costs and not have the ability to use free cash. I would prefer to leave that 880 sitting there so that if there's a year when we have a much leaner amount of free cash, that we would potentially go to that. That's money that we will never really replenish unless we have a terrible winter again. So my preference will be that we will go to free cash, but we do have that extra $880,000 sitting out there as an inclement weather reserve.
Oh, it's nice to know that we have that reserve. And my other question was, since we're not using the inches, to measure the cost? What's being used to do that?
I believe it's a combination. And so, it's a time and materials, more or less, contract with a lot of our contractors, but some of it, the hand shoveling may actually still be done by inch. We do a tremendous amount of hand shoveling as a city. We've actually had, though, a very hard time getting contracts for that in the last year or two. So I think we have our in-house people doing that. But as you can imagine, you think about all of the T stops that we have and different intersections and stairways to the T and places where we seriously need to go out and hand shovel. That's where I think if we are paying any money by the inch, but we still calculate it by the inch, because even though the contracts may not be, that the contracts used to be, if the snowfall was between 4 and 7 inches, say, we would pay X dollars for that storm. If it was anywhere from 7.1 inches to 10 inches, we would pay X dollars. Contractors would be able to, I don't want to say game, but really plan their bids. And so if they thought that most of our storms fell between 4 and 7 inches, they could make their bid look more favorable there and actually take a lesser amount of money if it was an 18-inch storm, because those are few and far between. And so the way that we would always cost it out, it could be that someone who was charging us more for a 4 to 7 inch storm may win the bid when somebody else was really bidding their real costs. So there were lots of challenges with that. And so now I think it's more of a hybrid model that we're doing.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Charm.
Yes, thank you. My question, I think, is one step, more looking at what's more of the normal or the optimistic scenario. So if we had a year where there was light snowfall, then DPW would have the $3.5 million in their budget. The $1.5 million that's in the comptroller's reserve might not be used. And then if that's the case, would that then go into free cash? And then that would kind of, be topping up that budget at the end of the year if it wasn't used. It feels like there's sort of different buckets that are pre-approved, approved with contingency, and then then there's the true reserve, which is the free cash. Is that roughly right, Ms. Amin?
So anything that would ever happen to that 1.5 million that we put in the comptroller's budget would come before you. So you would be a part of that decision. We cannot even spend it on snow removal, even though that's what it's initially intended for. We have had a few years in the last 5, 6, 7 years where we have not needed the comptroller's reserve for snow removal. And so what we have done in some of the years is come back to you as a council and ask to take that 1.5 million and reappropriate it for paving. And so if we have it's actually kind of funny, because when we have a difficult winter snow-wise, we actually need more money for paving, but we don't have it because we spent so much money on the snow. When we have an easier winter, we have leftover money, but we don't have the potholes that we would have with a difficult winter. But so what we would do is, we in the executive office would have lots of conversations about it. We would either come to you and either ask for it to be used for paving, to be used for some other need that may have arisen over the course of the year since we had prepared the budget the year before, or we would let it drop to free cash. But whatever we would do would come before you as a council. We do not have the authority to do anything with it on our own.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And just for those who haven't been through the free cash process before, if it dropped to free cash in this fiscal year and the administration didn't come to ask us to reallocate it for another purpose, That money is then sort of frozen between the end of the fiscal year until free cash is certified in sort of late September, early October, and then is able to be allocated by the administration the following fiscal year. My recollection the last couple of years, because we have had a few years of very light snow, is that at the end we did do a lot of moving of the snow money into paving and other kind of like needs, and that it felt like a real bonus to be able to do it.
Exactly.
All set, Councilor Sherm? Okay, Councilor Malachy.
Two questions. I believe it's $39,000 contract for snow clearing of the Washington Street pilot, which I think is just the bike lane part of it, and not in the parking spaces, not Washington Street itself. Is that correct?
To be honest, Councilor Malachy, I do not know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if that amount was, it sounded like it was a flat amount irrespective of how much snow we got. And it could have been a really good deal or not a good deal. And it's, I think, looking like a very good deal for us and not such a good deal for the the bidder. I was just wondering what was going to happen to that next year. But that's, I guess, a DPW question. And also, are we looking at increasing the 1.5 million or the 3.5 million amounts going forward as costs increase?
Thank you. That's a great question. So what I tried, as I said a few minutes ago, the average annual cost of dealing with snow is about 5.4 million. And we have been very fortunate over the last several years. We've had a couple of years where we didn't spend anything near it. We also had 2015 and 2018 when we spent more than 7.5 million dealing with our snow. And so my goal is always to keep trying to get that appropriation in the budget to at least match the average amount of snowfall. So as we are, we're still almost 2 months away from delivering the budget to you. And so everything is still in flux, but my goal is always to continuously add to that amount of money. What we have been doing over the last few years is when we add to it in the Public Works Department. We have certainly felt, and if the council feels differently, I would want to understand that. But it seems as if we have really developed a great level of trust and communication, if you will, when it comes to our snow expenses. And so it seems to be working very well that we keep the comptroller's portion flat at the 1.5 million and that we add any money that we're able to the Public Works budget.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll see.
Thank you. We are not taking comments or questions from members of the public, but I thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Okay, we have a motion from Councillor Bixby on this item. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, very good. That concludes our business for the evening. Stay safe and warm, everyone, and hopefully next time we'll get to have our meeting in our hybrid format and see a lot of you in person. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.